All right, get ready, because today we're going deep into business economics research. We're talking about walking into an interview for a job where you'll be breaking down economic trends and giving businesses advice on how to handle the markets, and maybe even helping to shape economic policy.
Yeah, no pressure. Right.
Exactly. But that's what we're here for, to help you nail that interview. We've got some great resources from RoleCatcher to help us out. They have some career guides and interview prep materials that are full of really useful insights. We're going to focus on a few common interview questions. That way you can figure out what the interviewers really want to know and how to come up with answers that'll really impress them.
And the really cool thing about RoleCatcher is that it goes beyond just general advice. It uses AI to really look at specific job descriptions
Okay.
and then helps you tailor your answers to highlight the skills that employers are looking for.
It's like having a personalized coach right there in your pocket.
Exactly.
So let's dive into these questions. The first one is a classic. Describe your familiarity with microeconomic and macroeconomic concepts. Sounds simple enough, but what are they actually trying to get at here?
Well, they're looking for a solid grasp of the basics, but they want to see more than just textbook definitions, you know? It's one thing to memorize concepts, but can you actually apply them? That's what they want to know.
So if I was in the hot seat, I'd probably start by giving an overview of my understanding of the core microeconomic principles, like supply and demand,
Yeah.
elasticity, market structures. Then I'd move on to macroeconomic concepts like GDP, inflation, unemployment.
Right.
But I wouldn't just stop there.
Exactly. You got to bring it to life with real-world examples. Think about projects you've worked on, maybe a time you analyzed a market trend or looked at the impact of a policy change. Show them you can connect the dots between theory and the real world.
Oh, I bet they'll have follow-up questions to really see how deep your understanding goes. Like maybe they'll ask, can you explain how a specific government policies say a change in interest rates might affect a particular industry?
Absolutely. They want to see that you can think critically and analyze those ripple effects of economic decisions. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can really come in handy.
Oh, yeah.
You can use it to practice answering those tough questions, get feedback on your responses, and even fine-tune the way you say things to match the specific industry or role you're going for.
Okay. Let's move on to question number 2. Tell me about a research project you conducted and its findings. This one's all about showing off your research skills
Yeah.
and your ability to explain complex information in a way that's easy to understand.
Definitely. Choose a project that's really relevant to the role and highlight the challenges you faced, the methods you used, and what your conclusions actually mean.
Don't just give them a boring summary of the project. They want to hear about those aha moments. The unexpected findings, those times when your research took you down a rabbit hole.
Exactly. And be ready for those follow-up questions like, what were the limitations of your research, or how would you approach this project differently now? Those questions are designed to test your ability to think about your work and recognize areas where you could improve.
Question number 3 gets a little more personal. Why did you choose a career in business economics research? This is where they're trying to figure out your passion, your motivation. What really drives you in this field?
Authenticity is key here. Don't just give a generic answer about loving economics. Think about what specifically led you down this path. Was it a certain professor, a book you read, a real-world event that sparked your interest?
Connect your answer to the specific role and company you're interviewing for.
Yes.
For example, you could say something like, I was drawn to this role at your company because I'm passionate about sustainable finance, and I see your firm as a leader in that space.
Exactly. That shows that you've done your research and that you're genuinely excited about this opportunity. Now, this next question is an interesting one. How do you stay up to date on current economic trends and developments?
I think they want someone who's proactive, someone who doesn't just rely on textbooks, but is out there actively searching for information.
Absolutely. Mention specific publications you read, podcasts you listen to, thought leaders you follow on social media. Show them you're curious and that you're committed to always learning. But don't just name drop things. Be ready to discuss specific economic trends that have caught your eye and tell them why.
And don't forget professional development. Talk about any courses you've taken, conferences you've attended, or certifications you're working towards.
Speaking of certifications, RoleCatcher can actually help you figure out which ones are most relevant to the jobs you're interested in.
Oh, cool.
And they can give you guidance on how to prepare for those exams. It's a fantastic resource for advancing your career.
Okay, so question number 5 digs into the details of your analytical skills. How do you approach developing economic models for business decision-making?
All right, so here's where you break it down into steps. Start by emphasizing how important it is to really understand the business problem you're dealing with, and then identify the key variables and how they relate to each other.
Then talk about the different modeling techniques you know and how you choose the right model
Right.
based on the data you have and what you're trying to achieve with the analysis.
And don't forget to mention model validation. Explain how you test the model's assumptions and make sure it's accurate.
They might even ask you about a specific model you've built in the past. Be ready to walk them through your process and discuss the results
Yeah.
and the insights you gained. Now, this next question is all about quality control. How do you ensure the quality and accuracy of your economic research?
First, outline your process for doing really thorough literature reviews, identifying reputable sources, and carefully evaluating existing research. Explain how you make sure your data is valid. Control for any biases, and ensure that your findings are reliable.
And don't be shy about highlighting your attention to detail. It shows that you're a careful researcher who takes pride in producing high-quality work.
Absolutely. They want to see that you're not just crunching numbers, but that you're being meticulous and thoughtful in your approach. Now, this next one is a bit of a curveball. How do you communicate complex economic concepts to non-experts?
This is all about your communication skills.
Right.
Can you translate your economics jargon into something that's clear and concise, something that's engaging for people who aren't economists?
Think about it. You might have to present your findings to a CEO,
Right.
a board of directors, or even clients who don't have a background in economics. You need to tailor your message to their level of understanding.
Talk about how you use analogies, visual aids, and storytelling to make complicated ideas easier to grasp.
And be ready to give specific examples of times when you've successfully communicated economic concepts to people who aren't experts. Maybe you presented research findings to a client, or explain a complex policy change to a group of stakeholders.
All right, we're making good progress here. We've still got more interview questions to go over.
We do.
But let's take a quick break and we'll be back to tackle the rest.
So let's jump back into those interview questions. This next one really tests your ability to think strategically. How do you balance the needs of stakeholders with the economic realities of a situation?
This is where things get really interesting because it's not just about the numbers and economic theory anymore. You have to understand the human element and navigate those tough spots where different people have different interests.
Yeah, exactly. You want to show them that you can think critically about trade-offs and weigh the pros and cons of different choices, and come up with solutions that make sense economically, but also take into account everyone's needs.
So how would you go about answering this question in an interview?
I'd start by making sure they know that I understand that economic decisions often have a bigger impact, and that it's super important to consider everyone's point of view. Then I'd talk about doing a thorough cost-benefit analysis, but I'd also emphasize clear communication and transparency, making sure everyone is in the loop during the decision-making process.
You could also mention techniques like stakeholder mapping or scenario planning. Those tools show that you can anticipate potential conflicts and figure out different perspectives and come up with strategies to deal with those challenges.
For sure. It's all about showing that you can find that balance between making things work economically and keeping stakeholders happy. All right, let's switch gears a bit. This next question is all about economic policy. How do you assess the impact of economic policy on businesses and industries?
This is where you connect the dots between those big policy decisions and what actually happens in the real world. You can really show off your expertise in analyzing economic policy.
Okay, so start by outlining the main things you'd look at, like the type of policy, the specific industry or sector, and the overall economic situation. Then explain how you'd use tools like economic modeling or impact assessment studies, even scenario analysis, all to figure out the potential effects, both good and bad.
I think it's important to show that you're aware of those unintended consequences too. Sometimes policy changes have those ripple effects that nobody saw coming. So being able to think critically and anticipate those is a really valuable skill.
You got it. You want to show that you're not just focused on the immediate impact, but also thinking about the long-term implications of those decisions. Okay, ready for the last question in this set?
Hit me with it.
All right, here it is. How do you approach conducting economic research in emerging markets? Now, this one's a bit different. It really tests your ability to adapt and be resourceful, and your cultural sensitivity.
It's recognizing that those tried and true research methods you learned might not always work in places with unique challenges, like not enough data, regulatory hurdles, cultural differences, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So how would you convince them that you can handle those challenges?
Well, I'd probably start by acknowledging those complexities and explain how I'd adjust my research methods. For example, I might talk about finding alternative data sources or working with local experts, people who really understand the ins and outs of those markets, and being aware of cultural sensitivities when I'm designing surveys or conducting interviews.
That's a great approach. It shows them that you can think outside the box and find creative solutions when the usual methods just won't cut it.
And if you've got any personal experience doing research in emerging markets, now it's time to share. Maybe you studied abroad or worked on an international development project or have language skills that would be helpful.
Exactly. Things like that show that you're willing to step outside your comfort zone and that you can handle those complex cross-cultural situations. We've covered a lot of ground here going over these tough interview questions and giving you some strategies to approach them effectively.
But remember, practice makes perfect. Go over your answers. Think about those follow-up questions. And don't be afraid to let your personality shine through. Let them see your passion for business economics research.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can really be a game changer here. You can use it to look at specific job descriptions, tailor your answers to highlight the skills they want, even get feedback on how you deliver your answers and the language you use. It's like having a coach who knows exactly what those hiring managers are looking for.
It's all about using those resources to give yourself an edge. So moving beyond the interview itself, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. What's it actually like to have a career in business economics research? What are the different paths you can take? What are the rewards and challenges?
Let's dive into that in the last part of our deep dive. We'll explore those career insights and leave you with some food for thought as you start this exciting journey.
Okay, so you've covered all those tough interview questions.
Yeah.
But prepping for an interview is really just the beginning,
Right.
What happens once you actually land that dream job as a business economics researcher? What does the career path look like?
I'm glad you asked that. RoleCatcher actually has some great information about career progression in this field.
Okay.
They break it down into 4 stages.
Okay.
Starting with junior researcher, then you move up to business economics researcher, then senior business economics researcher, and finally principal business economics researcher.
So there's a clear path with more and more responsibility and leadership opportunities as you gain experience.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is it's not just a straight climb up the ladder.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher says you can specialize in different areas of economics,
Exactly.
like econometrics, industrial organization, even behavioral economics.
Right. And as you move through those stages, your role changes. So, for instance, a junior researcher might be mostly focused on gathering data and analyzing it, supporting the more senior researchers. But as they become a business economics researcher, they'll probably take on more responsibility for designing research projects, presenting findings, even advising clients.
I really like that RoleCatcher includes those sample profiles of people at each stage.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier to picture yourself in those roles. Like they have this profile of a senior business economics researcher who focuses on market forecasting, and they lead a whole team of analysts.
Those real-world examples really make it more concrete, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get to that principal level, you're not just doing research anymore. You're leading those strategic initiatives, mentoring the newer folks, even shaping the entire research direction of the firm.
Now, that's the kind of career growth that I like to hear about. But it's not always easy, right? RoleCatcher is upfront about some of the challenges too, like the possibility of long hours, tough deadlines, and having to constantly keep up with the latest economic trends and all the new technology coming out.
That's where continuous learning comes in. RoleCatcher has a ton of resources for professional development, things like links to industry publications, online courses, and professional organizations. They even have a whole section on career advancement strategies.
I'm really curious about what they say about certifications. They highlight a few really valuable ones, like the Chartered Financial Analyst, Certified Business Economist, and Certified Market Research Professional. But they don't just list them out. They actually explain how those certifications can help you. They can boost your credibility, open up new opportunities, and even lead to higher pay.
It's about making smart choices about your career and putting in the time to grow professionally.
Right.
And don't forget that RoleCatcher's AI can help you figure out which certifications make the most sense for the jobs you're interested in. Wow.
And even give you some tips on preparing for those exams.
It's like having your own personal career advisor. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of business economics research, I want to leave you with a final thought. This field is all about really understanding the forces that shape our world. market trends, government policies, technological innovations. It's about putting the pieces together, analyzing all that data, and providing insights that help businesses and policymakers make those big decisions.
It's a challenging career. It's intellectually stimulating, and it needs that special mix of analytical skills, communication skills, and a real desire to learn and grow.
And remember, you've got resources like RoleCatcher to help you along the way, whether you're prepping for an interview, planning your career, or just wanting to stay ahead of the game in this fast-paced field.
So don't be afraid of the challenges. Be curious. Never stop learning.
You got this. And until next time, keep those brains engaged and those insights coming.